Good afternoon, everybody. Adam will be with you in 1 second. I just wanted to welcome virtually Sarah Comodina and Leanne Folder. When we get to the Q&A, the two of you, I'll be sure to recognize you and ensure that you have an opportunity to ask your questions. Okay, Adam, over to you.
Thank you. Before I start, I just want to say thank you to Kevin Kolp and Deanne de Andrade for being our interpreters today. So thank you. Thanks, Katrin, and good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to start by thanking Edmontonians for taking time to understand all of the many changes our city has been making daily as a response to COVID-19. You are coming together as a community, and I can't thank you enough for your support during this difficult time. Today, I want to talk to you about a number of decisions that the city has made to continue to protect Edmontonians during the COVID-19 crisis. As you know, we opened the doors to the Expo Centre yesterday to serve as a COVID site for some of our city's most vulnerable people. I want to commend our partners and our own city staff who have worked tirelessly through the weekend to ensure that this space is ready to serve Edmontonians. A drop-in center in a space large enough to provide appropriate physical distancing will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week for those without access to housing who are not showing COVID-19 symptoms. A separate portion of the Expo Center is reserved for those experiencing homelessness, who have been exposed to the coronavirus, or who have symptoms of COVID-19. The area will be used as a 24/7 referral-based isolation center in which medical, public health, and mental health supports are available. I want to next talk about changes we've made at the City of Edmonton service centers. Last night, the city announced the closure of a number of in-person service centers effective today. The following locations with in-person services will be closed in an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19. The Edmonton Service Centre located in the Edmonton Tower, the Landlord and Tenant Advisory Board front counter, and the Reuse Centre. These closures will further help to protect the health and safety of City of Edmonton employees and the public we serve at these locations. Most of our in-person service counters have experienced a drop in visits recently due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And since almost all of our services can be accessed by Edmontonians online by using 311 or contacting the service directly, we feel that on the balance, this should not be an additional inconvenience on city residents. In the meantime, we're working hard to develop resources for citizens, and we'll share more information about specific services in the coming day. I should also mention that the Animal Care and Control Center service counter will remain open for services, but by appointment only at this time. We will keep counters closed at all the facilities I listed for as long as necessary to protect the health and safety of Edmontonians, those who work for us, and those that we're providing the services to. All service center employees are currently working from home to ensure that Edmontonians' needs are still met when it comes to the services they provide. We will continue to reevaluate the decisions as the COVID-19 situation further develops. For us, this is about finding the balance between providing services Edmontonians need and keeping both employees and the public safe. I'd now like to talk about the changes we're making to ETS Route 747 service. Effective tomorrow morning, ETS Route 747 service will be suspended for use by all travelers. This includes travelers who have landed at the International Airport, as well as travelers heading from Century Park Transit Center to the airport. Route 747 will remain operational as a charter service for people who work at the airport or in the vicinity. This service adjustment is aligned with protecting the public and transit operators while supporting the transit needs of those who work in and around the airport. It also supports the government's directive requiring travelers to immediately self-isolate when returning from abroad. Our top priority is the health and safety of Edmontonians. We appreciate the support of Edmontonians as we manage this COVID situation together. I would like to speak for a moment about something the city is not doing, because I'm concerned that somebody is misleading Edmontonians. It's come to our attention that there are letters circulating which state that the city is tracking people's movements using license plate numbers and is threatening fines for violating self-isolation. Let me be clear, this is not a letter from the city of Edmonton. It's a fake. Ignore the letter. I'd now like to talk about physical distancing. Unfortunately, it seems like some Edmontonians just aren't getting the message about this, and so I would like to reiterate it again. If you choose to go outside, please ensure that you have 2 meters or 6 feet between yourself and others. This applies to absolutely everyone, from walks on city trails to your local grocery store. I saw a video shared on social media this past weekend where far too many Edmontonians were using the stairs next to the Royal Glenora Club. And we're not asking you to stop working out or spending time outside. We're just asking you to do it in a safe and physically distant way. The directive from health officials to stay home, if you can, are about saving lives and preventing our healthcare system from being overwhelmed. People who are at low risk of becoming sick are still at a high risk of spreading the virus. I understand how disruptive COVID-19 has been. I understand that there's social restrictions and they can be challenging. However, we can all support the health and safety of all Edmontonians by practicing physical distancing. We are in this together. Our top priority is and always has been the health and safety of Edmontonians. And this is why the city is making some additional changes that you need to be aware of. Effective immediately, we will be closing outdoor playgrounds to the public and will not open city-owned spray parks on the regular seasonal schedule. With schools closed, we understand this will be disappointing news for some families and children, but the reason we're doing this is to contain the spread of COVID-19. The hard surfaces of playground equipment are not clean, so there is risk of virus transmission from them. We will be increasing monitoring of the city playgrounds to ensure that people are adhering to this direction. We will also be closing sledding hills as the season is winding down, and some of the intel we have is that, again, folks need to practice appropriate social distancing. And since the Nordic skiing season is already winding down, we will discontinue the maintenance of cross-country ski trails. To promote better physical distancing, we will also be reducing picnic site capacity for the public by removing picnic tables. Parks and access to the river valley and trails and staircase remain open to the public with a plea that physical distancing and proper hygiene must be followed while using these facilities. The city will monitor these public spaces, and if needed, we may take further actions through an order in terms of enforcement. Again, we encourage Edmontonians to continue to engage with their city and community spaces in responsible ways that follow health and safety and physical distancing guidelines. The city is taking steps to help people help each other. We know this is a difficult time in our community, but if we all work together, we can flatten the curve, which will reduce the spread and help our frontline health workers to care for those who need it the most. So please, if you plan to go outside, spread out and maintain a safe distance from others to ensure all of our safety. And as per the Alberta Health Services recommendations, please stay home if you're a member, you or a member of your family are feeling unwell. It is also recommended to wash your hands before and after interacting in any public spaces and avoid touching your face at all times. Now, I want to take some time to sincerely thank you all for the kindness and compassion I am seeing among Edmontonians during these incredibly tough times. From the people offering to run errands and buy groceries for seniors and those who are immunocompromised, to the people thanking our frontline workers and city bus drivers with special messages written in chalk or sidewalks, you are helping us all get through this. To the children drawing pictures and hanging them on their family windows for people to see as they walk by with a smile. I know these little messages of hope help me keep going each day, as I'm sure they do for many of you as well. Thank you to the Edmontonians who suggested we light the high-level bridge. I'm so pleased to advise that the bridge is blue and green all week to support the WHO, Alberta Health Services, and all healthcare workers who are doing their best for all of us. It is true we are all in this together. If we continue to support and take care of each other, we are better for it. As always, you can find additional information on our website daily at edmonton.ca/COVID-19, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I'm going to go to those who've joined us by phone. Leanne or Sarah, do you have a question to kick us off?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah. Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to ask, with the switch to many companies working from home or changing how they are doing their workflow, with the city being such a big organization, how has that transition gone and how many are working?
Sarah's question is about our transition of our staff to working from home and the numbers that we have. Adam?
Thanks for the question. It varies on a daily basis, but we do, and we've had strong encouragement for our staff to work from home. Certainly there's frontline operations that it's more challenging to be able to do that, but depending on departments, it is as high as a 90% that are working from home and still providing service. But for other departments, like our city operations department, for example, that provides some front-facing services, much more difficult to provide that. But I would say as a whole, the city has, as our city staff have really adopted and taken up the opportunity to work from home to respond to this situation, all still while providing great service to Edmontonians.
Leanne, your question, and then we'll go to the room. Go ahead, Leanne.
Thank you. So the playgrounds are all closed. Now, I just want to double check this. So in my neighborhood, for instance, there are the school with playgrounds, all the structures, those are closed. In the middle, there's two soccer fields. And families will go access soccer fields.
So Leanne's question is about the practicalities or the detail around the closures of the playgrounds. Are soccer fields still accessible? Adam?
Thanks for the question. Yes, the park spaces around the playgrounds will be open. Our concern is related to the hard infrastructure and that being a surface that can accommodate easy transmission. So we do recognize the need to provide open public spaces. So the focus of this closure is specifically the infrastructure or the playground itself. And so our folks will be taking measures to tape those off or barricade those off so that that physical delineation is provided.
Okay, and one quick follow-up, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
At what time of the year, at what date specifically would those spray parks normally be open? So they're not going to be open now, but what date would we normally expect them to be open?
So the question is, at what date would we typically open our spray parks? It is seasonal. It depends on the conditions that we're in, and I believe we start to get them going in up in sort of operational for mid-May, getting prepared for full operation. So you'd see some of our operations in terms of getting the lines flushed and the infrastructure working in kind of the early May, mid-May timeframe. But again, full operations are seasonally dictated.
Okay, thanks.
Just sticking with the playground, said there's going to be more monitoring of people, making sure that they're abiding. But what's the enforcement looking like?
So at this point in time, we don't have specific enforcement, but under the state of local emergency, there is the ability to provide some orders related to whatever enforcement we need to see. So we're going to monitor. We're going to respect that Edmontonians will honor this requirement to not use those playgrounds. But if we do see folks that aren't, we will take some steps from an order perspective by me, from an enforcement side. We've seen Edmontonians respond to this in the past, and so I expect they will again, but we will be monitoring, and should we need to, we may advance to an order.
And at what point does police enforcement just overall become a factor? And has there been any conversation with the province or whatever it may be, what role police would play when it comes to social and physical distancing?
So the question is, will police play a role in this, and have we had any conversations with the province related to the social distancing? And it's I can say it's a discussion topic that we have on a regular basis with the province in terms of what we're seeing in the Edmonton area, and I'm sure that other municipalities are doing the same with the province. And in terms of the EPS role, that would be municipal specific. So for Edmonton, it would be through what they normally do in terms of the services they provide, or if needed, an order to get them to help with any sort of situation that we have. Right now, we're definitely not there. This is first step is the closure. Next step is to monitor, and if we're seeing folks aren't following that, then we take future steps.
What would Adam, can you then just talk about the stairs, for example? So, I mean, if the weather's going to turn nice in a few days, there's going to be a lot more people out. So, how does monitoring isn't effective? So, how quickly can you make that decision, and do staff have authority, I guess?
So the question is, it's going to get nicer, stairs are going to get used more, and monitoring isn't effective. I disagree. Monitoring is effective, but if we're seeing folks aren't following, then it would be taking those additional steps in terms of an order and starting to enforce social distancing. If we're starting to see challenges with a particular piece of infrastructure itself, we may take the step to close it as well.
About enforcement now, we're talking about a fine, and have you thought about what would that be?
We've been working through that. We've been reaching out to other municipalities in terms of what that would look like. Sorry, the question was, if we're talking about enforcement, it's about a fine, and we've been talking to other municipalities about that. We've been reviewing it ourselves, so I would say that it's early for us to comment on what that would be, but it would be something we would have in place should we institute an order for enforcement.
And are you considering the city under the local state of emergency does have the authority to order non-essential businesses closed, is that correct? And are you considering that?
So the question is, under the state of local emergency, the city could close particular businesses. That is something that is within the power of state of local emergency. However, when I had the conversation with our emergency advisory committee, I indicated the primary driver for the state of local emergency, which is to try and encourage the appropriate movement within the city of Edmonton for those folks that are potentially COVID positive. If we were to take a step or recommend a step like that, I would circle back to council to have that conversation with them. And again, to answer the question earlier, we're in regular communication with the province, and so we'd want to make sure we're lockstep with any sort of decision making or any decisions that they're going to make. And I'm not indicating that they are. It's just we want to make sure that we're working closely with the province and not taking steps that perhaps is out of line with what their current thinking could be.
Just going back to the stairs, for example, has the city put up signage? We see that here. But is there signage that could perhaps go up to alert people to be cognizant of conditions?
Yeah, the question is, could we add additional signage related to social distancing and ensuring folks are following that? We've started to amp that up. We've done it in facilities, certain facilities or certain locations, but our task team and folks that manage the operations are starting to look at opportunities to provide additional signage. It's a bit of the pressure on the resources that we have right now, and making sure that we're focused on what are the priorities, which is providing the frontline service first.
Particularly, there was a photo taken of Terwilliger dog, off-leash dog park on the weekend, and it just showed car after car in a row lined up. And is that one location, for example, that is getting more signs? Or?
So the question is, saw on the weekend a dog park that had many people attending, and are we considering signs there? We're considering many different treatments there. It's the monitoring, it's the potential order, and it is just making sure folks are aware of the requirements for social distancing. I'm not sure where we're at yet in terms of specific locations for signs, but we are starting to get that out.
Kind of building on that, where we might be ending up here, what do you have to see? What are the criteria before we get to a place where we might need to have more of a lockdown, where you might be recommending something like that, where we've seen in other countries?
So the question is, where do we need to get to from an indicator perspective on if we need to take more drastic steps in terms of full closures or facility closures? And in our meetings with council, the Emergency Advisory Committee, we identified 11 indicators that we constantly monitor. One of them is adherence to the provincial order, but also the potential of not adhering to Alberta Health Services guidance around social distancing. If we start to see that happening, that might be a step we take. But again, we don't want to do something that's disjointed from the province. And so I think we really want to make sure we're lockstep with the province on any measures we take. But certainly that's available to us. If we're seeing not adhering to social distancing, that might be a trigger for us. Also, if we start to see a significant spike in the number of cases in the Edmonton zone, that would be another one that may be a trigger for us to be, or an indicator for us to take that next step of full facility closure.
What about actually restricting movement, having measures like in other countries, in the UK, for example, where people are not allowed to leave their homes unless it's an essential trip to some degree if they have to work, or maybe a grocery store trip, and that's it. Is that within the city's power, or does that have to come from the province?
So the question is similar to what's happening in the UK in terms of restricting trips writ large, except for essentials, grocery stores and those sorts of things. That is a step that we could take municipally, but I think we'd want to make sure that we're aligned with the province on any step like that.
Just 747, so again, that's been no more passengers, or I guess travelers, I guess, right? Any concern that traveler might show up, and what's the bus operator supposed to say to that person?
So the question is on the ETS 747 and the ability to enforce no travelers. It would be something we'd have to be educating our employees on, and messaging like this, and making sure folks are aware that that service won't be provided for travelers. You may see an adjustment in the frequency related to that. So it's just one of those things where we'll continue to monitor, ensure that our employees are in a safe place from an enforcement perspective related to that, and just to plead Edmontonians to respect that and ensure they're doing their part. Again, the Premier spoke about it pretty passionately yesterday. We want you to get home, isolate, and make sure you're following the precautions from the provincial health order. And one of the means that we've got for travel today won't be available to you, so please make other arrangements.
Last question from the floor, please.
Can you talk, Adam, about that letter? I know it's big, but people see it and it looked quite real. Can you just emphasize how the city communicates and just the message you have for Edmontonians on that, please?
So the question is about the letter, and it looks quite real, and and our message about that. First off, that's fake. Do not respond in any way to that letter. We're trying to source, if we can, where that letter is coming from, and it's unfortunate that someone at this point in time would try to take advantage of Edmontonians. I think in any instance like that, and I think folks started to do that, when something comes in like that and it's looking a little fishy, call 311, because our folks can help you in terms of getting to the truth of something related to that. But I do thank Edmontonians. I got some notifications myself, and I know our councillors did. So I do thank Edmontonians for flagging that this doesn't look quite right. And I appreciate them doing that, because that's the way that we get that. But certainly if folks see something that doesn't seem right, or it's off, best source of information is 311, and we can track that down for you.
We appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. We'll keep you posted as to when we'll gather with you again. Thank you.
Thank you.